The night was calm over New York City with the usual hum of traffic and distant chatter filling the air. The stars above twinkled faintly, their light dimmed by the city's glow. But then something changed. A strange shimmer appeared in the sky like a ripple spreading across water. People stopped what they were doing and looked up, their curiosity quickly turning to unease. The shimmer grew brighter, and within moments a massive object descended from the heavens. It was a ship, but unlike anything humanity had ever seen. Its surface gleamed with an unnatural metallic sheen, and its edges pulsed faintly with a cold, alien light. Panic spread faster than anyone could have imagined. Phones buzzed with alerts as news outlets scrambled to cover the event. Social media erupted with videos and photos of the enormous vessel hovering above Manhattan. Governments around the world went into emergency sessions trying to figure out what to do. No one knew who or what was aboard the ship. Then, without warning, a voice filled the minds of everyone on Earth. It wasn't spoken through speakers or broadcast over radios. Instead, it seemed to come from inside their heads, resonating deep within their thoughts. "Your world is ours, to harvest," the voice said, cold and emotionless. The message was clear. Humanity was not being invited to negotiate. It was being told to surrender. In Washington, D.C., Captain Ryan Hayes stood in a crowded situation room, his expression unreadable. Around him, military leaders shouted orders and pored over maps, trying to make sense of the chaos unfolding outside. Ryan was a fighter pilot with years of experience under his belt, but nothing could have prepared him for this. He glanced at Dr. Laura Bennett, who stood nearby, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. She was a linguist and xenobiologist, someone who studied alien life, though until now that had mostly meant theorizing about possibilities rather than dealing with actual extraterrestrials. Her presence here was a sign of how desperate things had become. "We need to try communicating," Laura said firmly, breaking the tense silence. "If we don't attempt to understand them, we're just assuming they're hostile." "And if they are hostile?" Ryan asked, his tone sharp but controlled. "What happens when they decide talking isn't worth their time?" Laura hesitated, knowing he had a point. Still, she pressed on. "We can't jump straight to violence without even trying. If there's a chance they might listen, we have to take it." Reluctantly, the decision was made to send a signal. A simple message of peace, transmitted in multiple languages and mathematical patterns designed to be universally understood. Hours passed, and the response came swiftly. The Krylos, as they called themselves, sent back a single word: pray. That one word sent chills down everyone's spines. There would be no negotiation. Humanity was nothing more than food to these creatures. As the realization sank in, cities around the globe began to burn. The Krylos wasted no time launching attacks, deploying swarms of smaller ships that darted through the skies like insects. Their weapons were unlike anything humans had encountered before, beams of energy capable of slicing through steel and concrete as easily as paper. Buildings crumbled, streets emptied, and screams echoed through the air as people fled for their lives. Ryan found himself leading a squadron of F-35s in a desperate counterattack. The jets roared into the sky, their engines screaming defiance against the invaders. For a brief moment, Ryan felt a surge of hope. Maybe, just maybe, humanity could fight back. But that hope was short-lived. The Krylos ships moved with impossible speed, weaving between the fighters with ease. Missiles fired by the humans missed their targets entirely, while the aliens retaliated with devastating precision. Explosions lit up the sky as plane after plane was shot down. Ryan gritted his teeth, focusing on staying alive. His wingman, a young pilot named Alex, was flying close behind him. They worked together seamlessly, covering each other's blind spots as they dodged enemy fire. But then, out of nowhere, a Krylos ship appeared directly in front of Alex. Before Ryan could warn him, a blinding flash engulfed the younger pilot's jet. When the light faded, there was nothing left. Ryan clenched his fists on the controls, forcing himself to keep moving despite the weight of grief pressing down on him. Back on the ground, civilians cowered in shelters or fled into the countryside, hoping to escape the slaughter. Among them was Jake Miller, a former mechanic from Chicago. He watched the destruction unfold on a small TV in the basement of an abandoned building where he'd taken refuge. Jake wasn't a soldier, nor did he consider himself brave. But as he saw images of entire neighborhoods reduced to rubble, something inside him snapped. He couldn't sit idly by while the world fell apart. Jake grabbed a toolbox and headed outside, determined to do whatever he could to help. The streets were eerily quiet, littered with debris and abandoned cars. He started scavenging parts from wrecked vehicles, piecing together makeshift weapons and defenses. Others noticed his efforts and joined him, forming a ragtag group of survivors. Together, they transformed ordinary trucks and vans into armored machines armed with improvised EMP devices designed to disrupt the Krylos's advanced technology. It wasn't much, but it gave them a fighting chance. Meanwhile, in Los Angeles, Mia Carter sat hunched over a laptop in a darkened apartment. She was a programmer who had spent most of her life working on mundane software projects, never imagining she'd find herself in the middle of an alien invasion, but now she was determined to make a difference. Using her skills, Mia hacked into abandoned satellites orbiting Earth, using them to track the movements of the Krylos fleet. Every piece of data she gathered was relayed to scattered resistance groups, helping them plan their attacks more effectively. Despite these small victories, the overall picture remained bleak. The Krylos seemed unstoppable, their numbers endless. Cities continued to fall and millions of lives were lost. Yet amidst the despair, a spark of defiance began to grow. Ordinary people like Jake and Mia refused to give up, finding strength in their determination to protect what little remained of their world. And high above the planet, Captain Ryan Hayes flew his battered jet through the smoke-filled skies, vowing to keep fighting no matter the cost. Dr. Laura Bennett, meanwhile, worked tirelessly in a makeshift lab, analyzing fragments of destroyed Krylos drones recovered from battlefields. She examined every detail, searching for any weakness that could be exploited. Her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted the microscope, her mind racing with possibilities. Finally, she discovered something significant. The Krylos operated through a hive mind network, a collective consciousness that allowed them to act as a single entity. If this connection could be severed, even temporarily, it might throw their entire operation into disarray. Excited by her findings, Laura rushed to share them with Ryan. He listened intently, his brow furrowing as he processed the implications. "If we can disable their hive mind, we might stand a chance," he said slowly. "But getting close enough to do that won't be easy." "It's our best shot," Laura replied, her voice steady despite the exhaustion etched on her face. "And right now it's the only shot we've got." Ryan nodded, already formulating a plan. He knew it would be risky, perhaps even suicidal, but they had no other options. As he stared out at the burning horizon, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. The Krylos may have thought Earth was theirs for the taking, but they underestimated one thing: the resilience of humanity. As the days turned into weeks, the resistance grew stronger. In Chicago, Jake Miller and his group of survivors had transformed their makeshift base into a hub of activity. What started as a few people scavenging parts had become an organized effort to fight back against the Krylos. Jake's leadership came naturally. He wasn't loud or charismatic, but he was steady and resourceful. People trusted him because he worked harder than anyone else, often staying up late into the night welding metal or testing modifications on their vehicles. The group's most significant creation was a modified truck they called the Wraith. It had thick steel plating welded onto its frame, making it nearly impervious to small arms fire. Mounted on top was a jury-rigged EMP cannon, designed to disrupt the Krylos's advanced technology. Jake knew the weapon wouldn't destroy the aliens outright, but it could disable their ships long enough for humans to strike. The idea gave everyone hope, even if it was fragile. Word of Jake's efforts spread quickly through underground networks. Other groups reached out, sharing intelligence and supplies. In Los Angeles, Mia Carter coordinated these connections from her apartment-turned-command center. She mapped out Krylos movements using hacked satellite feeds, sending updates to resistance cells across the country. Her laptop became the lifeline of the rebellion, keeping fighters informed about enemy positions and weak points. Though she rarely left her desk, Mia felt more alive than ever before. Every line of code she wrote was a blow against the invaders. Chunbi, Washington, D.C., Captain Ryan Hayes prepared for what might be humanity's last stand. After hearing Laura Bennett's discovery about the Krylos hive mind, he devised a daring plan. He would lead a team aboard the massive alien mothership hovering above Earth's atmosphere, aiming to sever the connection that bound the Krylos together. It was a suicide mission, but Ryan didn't hesitate. If there was even a slim chance of success, he knew it had to be done. Ryan assembled a small team for the operation. Lieutenant Sarah Dawson, a Marine sniper with nerves of steel, volunteered immediately. Her sharpshooter skills made her invaluable in close-quarters combat, and her calm demeanor under pressure reassured those around her. Joining them was Ethan Cole, a brilliant engineer who had helped retrofit the stealth fighters Ryan planned to use. Ethan wasn't a soldier, but his technical expertise was crucial for navigating the alien ship's defenses. The mission required secrecy above all else. If the Krylos detected their approach, the entire operation would fail. To avoid detection, DARPA provided cloaked stealth fighters, cutting-edge aircraft designed to evade radar and visual sensors. These planes were humanity's best chance of reaching the mothership undetected. Ryan studied every detail of the flight path, memorizing potential hazards and contingency plans. He knew failure wasn't an option. Before the mission launched, Ryan met with Dr. Laura Bennett one last time. She handed him a small device, a prototype scanner capable of detecting the hive mind core once they were inside the ship. "This is your key," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "Find the core and destroy it. Without it, the Krylos will lose their coordination." Ryan nodded, slipping the device into his pocket. "We'll get it done," he promised, though he couldn't hide the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. Laura watched him go, silently praying that her research would make a difference. As the team prepared to depart, news of their mission leaked to other resistance groups. Across the globe, fighters rallied, planning simultaneous attacks to distract the Krylos and draw their attention away from the mothership. Jake and his crew loaded into the Wraith, ready to hit a nearby Krylos outpost. Mia stayed behind, coordinating the timing of each assault to ensure maximum impact. For the first time since the invasion began, humanity acted not as scattered individuals but as a united force. The night of the mission arrived, dark and heavy with anticipation. Ryan, Sarah, and Ethan climbed into their respective fighters, the hum of engines filling the air. As they took off, the ground below disappeared into shadow, replaced by the vast expanse of space. The mothership loomed ahead, its surface gleaming ominously in the starlight. Closer inspection revealed intricate patterns etched into its hull, pulsating faintly with an eerie glow. It looked less like a machine and more like a living organism, which only added to the tension gripping the team. Inside the cockpit, Ryan focused on maintaining the cloak, knowing that any mistake could expose them. Beside him, Sarah and Ethan followed closely, their fighters forming a tight formation. Communication was minimal. They couldn't risk broadcasting signals that might alert the Krylos. Instead, they relied on hand signals and prearranged maneuvers. Reaching the mothership undetected was only half the battle. Once inside, they would face untold dangers. The Krylos were known for their ferocity, and their warriors were faster and stronger than any human opponent. But Ryan pushed those thoughts aside. Fear wouldn't help them now. All that mattered was completing the mission. Back on Earth, the Resistance launched their coordinated attacks. Jake led his convoy toward the Krylos outpost, the Wraith's EMP cannon firing bursts of energy that disabled enemy drones. Around him, other guerrilla units struck similar targets, creating chaos wherever they went. Explosions lit up the horizon as humans fought back with everything they had. Though many fell in the process, their sacrifice bought precious time for Ryan's team. Mia monitored the situation from her laptop, her fingers flying across the keyboard. She rerouted power grids to keep communications running and adjusted satellite angles to provide real-time updates. Her heart raced as she watched the battles unfold, knowing that the fate of the mission, and perhaps the world, rested on her shoulders. Meanwhile, aboard the stealth fighters, Ryan and his team approached the mothership's entry point. A gaping maw opened beneath the vessel, likely used for deploying smaller craft. Ryan guided his fighter inside, holding his breath as alarms blared faintly in the distance. They had breached the ship, but now came the hardest part: finding the hive mind core. The interior of the mothership was unlike anything they had expected. The walls pulsed rhythmically as if alive, and strange tendrils hung from the ceiling, dripping with viscous fluid. The air carried a metallic tang, making it hard to breathe without masks. Sarah scanned the area cautiously, her rifle at the ready. Ethan fiddled with his equipment, trying to adapt it to the alien environment. "This place feels wrong," Ethan muttered, his voice barely audible over the comms. "Like it's watching us." "It probably is," Ryan replied grimly. "Stay sharp." They moved deeper into the ship, following the readings from Laura's scanner. Each step brought new challenges: patrolling drones, narrow passages, and traps designed to ensnare intruders. At one point, Sarah spotted a group of Krylos warriors ahead and signaled for the team to take cover. With precise aim, she picked off two of them before they could raise the alarm, allowing the others to slip past unnoticed. Despite the constant danger, Ryan felt a flicker of hope. They were getting closer. The scanner's signal grew stronger, guiding them toward the heart of the ship. He glanced at his teammates, seeing determination etched on their faces. Together, they had come this far. Now, all that remained was to finish the job. Far below, on Earth, the resistance continued to push forward. Fires burned in the streets as humans fought tooth and nail to reclaim their cities. Jake and his crew clashed with Krylos forces, their makeshift weapons proving surprisingly effective. Though outnumbered and outgunned, they refused to back down. Every shot fired, every explosion triggered, was a testament to humanity's resilience. And high above, Ryan and his team pressed onward, driven by the knowledge that the survival of their species depended on them. The Krylos may have thought Earth was theirs for the taking, but they had underestimated one critical factor: the unyielding spirit of humanity. The deeper Ryan, Sarah, and Ethan ventured into the Krylos mothership, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. The walls pulsed with a slow, rhythmic beat, like the heartbeat of some massive living creature. Strange sounds echoed through the corridors, clicks, hisses, and low vibrations that seemed to seep into their bones. Every step felt heavier, as if the ship itself was resisting their presence. Despite the weight of the moment, the team pressed on, driven by the knowledge that failure meant the end of humanity. Ethan adjusted the scanner Laura had given them, its small screen flickering with readings. "We're close," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the hum of the alien environment. "The signal is stronger here." He pointed ahead, where a wide chamber opened up, filled with thick, glowing tendrils that hung from the ceiling like vines in a jungle. At the center of the room stood a pulsating mass, a dense core of bioelectric energy surrounded by a web of organic cables. This was it, the hive mind core that connected the Krylos and allowed them to act as one. Ryan signaled for Sarah to take position. She moved silently, her rifle raised as she scanned the area for threats. Her sharp eyes caught movement in the shadows, Krylos drones skittering along the walls, their insectoid bodies twitching with unnatural speed. She steadied her breathing, lining up her shot. One by one, she picked off the drones before they could sound an alarm. Each kill brought a fleeting sense of relief, but the tension never fully left her body. There were too many unknowns, too much at stake. Ethan knelt beside the core, pulling tools from his pack. His hands trembled slightly as he worked, but his focus never wavered. "I need a few minutes," he said, his voice tight with concentration. "This thing is more complex than anything I've ever seen." Ryan nodded, keeping watch while Ethan worked. He gripped his weapon tightly, scanning the edges of the chamber for any sign of danger. The air felt charged, as if the ship knew they were there and was preparing to strike. "Hurry," Ryan urged, his tone low but urgent. "We don't have much time." As Ethan fiddled with wires and circuits, trying to disable the core, a sudden screech pierced the air. From the shadows emerged a group of Krylos warriors, their jagged limbs glinting in the dim light. They moved with terrifying speed, closing the distance between them and the humans in seconds. Ryan reacted instantly, firing his weapon in short bursts to hold them back. The shot struck true, sending two of the creatures sprawling, but more poured into the chamber, their glowing eyes fixed on the intruders. Sarah stepped forward, taking aim with precision. Her first shot hit a warrior square in the chest, dropping it instantly. Another round took out a second, but the sheer number of enemies made it impossible to keep them all at bay. "We can't hold them off forever," she shouted, reloading, her rifle with practiced efficiency. "I'm almost done," Ethan replied, sweat dripping down his face as his fingers worked frantically. He could feel the heat radiating from the core, the energy within it crackling dangerously. One wrong move and the entire system could overload. Ryan switched tactics, using the environment to his advantage. He grabbed one of the glowing tendrils hanging from the ceiling and yanked hard, causing it to snap free. The severed tendril whipped through the air, striking a Krylos warrior and sending it stumbling backward. It wasn't enough to stop them, but it bought precious seconds. "Ethan, hurry!" Ryan yelled again, his voice rising despite his effort to stay calm. Finally, Ethan let out a triumphant shout. "Got it!" He slammed the last piece into place, triggering a cascade of sparks from the core. The glowing mass began to destabilize, its pulsations growing erratic. The tendrils around the chamber writhed violently as if the ship itself was in pain. But the victory came at a cost. The explosion of energy drew the attention of something far more dangerous. From the depths of the chamber emerged the Krylos Queen, an enormous, grotesque creature that towered over them. Its body was covered in armored plates and its mouth was lined with rows of razor-sharp teeth. Glowing eyes locked onto the humans, radiating pure malice. The Queen let out a deafening roar, shaking the very foundation of the ship. Ryan stepped forward, placing himself between the Queen and his teammates. "Ethan, get ready to blow this thing," he ordered, his voice steady despite the terror clawing at his chest. "Sarah, cover him." Sarah nodded, raising her rifle once more. She fired repeatedly, aiming for the Queen's glowing eyes, the only vulnerable spot she could see. The shot struck true, forcing the creature to recoil momentarily, but it recovered quickly, lashing out with claws that sliced through the air with deadly precision. Ryan dodged the attack, rolling to the side before returning fire. His weapon's energy blasts struck the Queen's armored hide, doing little damage but buying time for Ethan to finish setting the explosives. "Almost there," Ethan called out, his hands trembling as he armed the charges. The Queen turned, its attention to Ryan, lunging forward with terrifying speed. He barely managed to sidestep the attack, feeling the rush of air as the creature's claws grazed his shoulder. Pain shot through his arm, but he gritted his teeth and kept moving. He couldn't afford to falter, not now. Sarah continued firing, her shots finding their mark with unerring accuracy. Each hit slowed the Queen down, but it wasn't enough to stop it completely. The creature's rage was palpable, its movements becoming more frenzied as it realized what the humans were doing. With a final, desperate charge, it lunged toward Ethan, who was crouched near the core finishing the setup. Ryan acted without thinking. He threw himself at the Queen, tackling it mid-stride and driving it away from Ethan. The impact sent both of them crashing to the ground, the Queen's claws slashing wildly as Ryan struggled to hold it back. For a moment, everything seemed to slow. He could feel the heat of the core behind him, hear the faint beep of the countdown timer ticking down. "Ryan!" Sarah screamed, her voice breaking through the chaos. She fired another burst, hitting the Queen squarely in the head. The creature roared in agony, thrashing violently before collapsing to the ground. Ryan scrambled to his feet, blood dripping from fresh wounds, but alive. "Let's go," he shouted, grabbing Ethan by the arm and pulling him toward the exit. Sarah followed close behind, covering their retreat as the core began to destabilize. The chamber shook violently, chunks of the ceiling breaking loose and crashing to the floor. They ran as fast as they could, dodging falling debris and leaping over shattered tendrils. Behind them, the core erupted in a blinding flash of light. sending shockwaves rippling through the ship. Alarms blared deafeningly, and the walls convulsed as if the entire structure was dying. The team reached their fighters just as the first wave of destruction reached them, diving inside and sealing the hatches. Ryan took control of his fighter, guiding it through the chaos as the mothership began to collapse. The cloaking systems held firm, shielding them from the swarms of Krylos ships still patrolling outside. As they broke free of the vessel's gravity well, they watched in awe as the massive ship imploded, consumed by its own destruction. A brilliant explosion lit up the sky, scattering debris across the void. Back on Earth, the effects of the hive mind's destruction were immediate. Across the globe, Krylos forces faltered, their coordinated attacks devolving into disorganized chaos. Without the central connection binding them together, the aliens became confused and sluggish, easy targets for the resistance. Jake and his crew capitalized on the opportunity, launching a full-scale assault on the outpost they had been targeting. The Wraith's EMP cannon disabled enemy ships, allowing guerrilla fighters to swarm in and reclaim the area. Mia monitored the situation from her laptop, tears streaming down her face as she watched the tide turn. For weeks, humanity had been on the brink of extinction. Now hope surged anew. Resistant cells around the world reported similar victories, their efforts finally paying off. Cities that had been reduced to rubble began to stir with life once more as survivors emerged from hiding to reclaim their homes. In Washington, D.C., Laura Bennett stared at the screens displaying real-time updates from the battlefield. Her discovery had been the key to humanity's survival, and though the cost had been high, she felt a deep sense of pride. The resilience of ordinary people like Jake, Mia, and even Ryan, had proven stronger than anyone could have imagined. As Ryan's fighter descended back to Earth, he allowed himself a brief moment of reflection. The mission had been a success, but it had come at great personal cost. Alex, his wingman, was gone, along with countless others who had given everything to protect their world. Yet even in the face of such loss, Ryan felt a spark of hope. Humanity had faced an enemy unlike any other, and had refused to give up. Against all odds, they had fought back and won. When the team landed, they were greeted as heroes, though none of them sought recognition. They simply wanted to rest, to heal, and to begin rebuilding. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but for the first time in weeks, the future didn't seem so bleak. The Krylos had underestimated humanity, and that mistake had cost them dearly. Far above, the remnants of the Krylos fleet retreated into the depths of space, carrying with them a grim warning. Earth was not a world to be taken lightly. And on the planet below, humanity stood united, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The days following the destruction of the Krylos mothership were a blur of activity. Across the globe, survivors emerged from hiding, their faces marked by exhaustion, but also by determination. The collapse of the hive mind had left the remaining Krylos forces disoriented and uncoordinated, making them vulnerable to counterattacks. Resistance fighters seized the opportunity, reclaiming cities block by block and pushing the invaders back toward their scattered ships. In Chicago, Jake Miller stood atop a pile of rubble, surveying the damage around him. The once bustling streets were now a maze of debris and broken buildings, but there was a sense of purpose in the air. People worked together, clearing roads, tending to the wounded, and salvaging what they could from the wreckage. The Wraith, battered but still functional, sat nearby, its EMP cannon ready for action if needed. Jake leaned against it, wiping sweat from his brow as he watched volunteers unload supplies from trucks. For weeks, Jake had been nothing more than a mechanic trying to survive. Now, he found himself leading a community effort to rebuild. He wasn't comfortable with the attention. He didn't see himself as a hero, but he couldn't deny the importance of what they were doing. Every brick laid, every meal cooked, every child comforted was a step toward healing. "We'll get through this," he told a group of workers one evening, his voice firm despite the weariness in his eyes. "We've already proven we can fight. Now it's time to show we can build." Meanwhile, in Los Angeles, Mia Carter continued her work from her makeshift command center. Though the immediate threat had lessened, She knew the battle wasn't over yet. Using hacked satellites, she tracked the movements of the remaining Krylos ships, ensuring that humanity stayed one step ahead. Her laptop buzzed constantly with messages from resistance groups seeking guidance or sharing updates. Despite the long hours and lack of sleep, Mia felt alive in a way she never had before. For the first time, she understood the power of connection, not just between machines, but between people working toward a common goal. Word of Captain Ryan Hayes' mission spread quickly, turning him and his team into symbols of hope. In Washington, D.C., Ryan struggled to adjust to his newfound fame. He wasn't comfortable being called a hero. He saw himself as just another soldier doing his duty. Still, he couldn't ignore the impact their success had on morale. Wherever he went, people thanked him, hugged him, or simply stared at him with tears in their eyes. It was overwhelming, but he reminded himself that their gratitude wasn't really for him. It was for everyone who had fought and sacrificed. Dr. Laura Bennett played a crucial role in the aftermath, analyzing data recovered from the mothership and studying the remnants of the Krylos technology. Her research provided valuable insights into how the aliens operated and offered clues about preventing future invasions. She worked tirelessly, driven by a desire to ensure that humanity would never be caught off guard again. When Ryan visited her lab to check on her progress, she greeted him with a rare smile. "You did it," she said simply, her voice filled with quiet pride. "Not just you, but all of us. We won because we worked together." The victory came at a heavy cost. Entire cities lay in ruins, and millions of lives had been lost. Memorials sprang up in parks and squares, honoring those who had given everything to protect their world. Families gathered to mourn loved ones, finding solace in shared grief. Yet even amid the sorrow, there was a sense of resilience. The scars of war would take years to heal, but humanity had endured, and that fact gave people strength. Governments around the world began collaborating in ways they never had before. Borders meant less when facing a threat that didn't recognize them. Nations pooled resources to develop advanced defenses, using knowledge gained from studying the Krylos. Engineers designed new weapons and shielding systems based on alien tech, while scientists explored ways to harness bioelectric energy like the hive mind core. Schools incorporated lessons on the invasion, teaching children about both the dangers of complacency and the power of unity. Jake traveled to Washington, D.C. at Ryan's invitation to share his experiences and ideas. The two men bonded over their shared determination to prepare for whatever might come next. "We got lucky this time," Jake said during one meeting, "but luck doesn't win wars. We need to be ready." His words resonated deeply, inspiring leaders to prioritize innovation and training. Plans were drawn up for underground shelters, early warning systems, and rapid response units capable of mobilizing within minutes. Mia joined a global task force dedicated to monitoring space for signs of other threats. Her expertise in satellite networks made her an invaluable asset, and she relished the chance to contribute on a larger scale. From her new position, she coordinated efforts to scan deep space, looking for any hint of returning Krylos or other potential invaders. Though the work was demanding, it gave her peace of mind knowing she was helping keep Earth safe. Ethan Cole returned to his lab, pouring his energy into improving the cloaking technology used in the stealth fighters. He became obsessed with making sure humanity would never again be caught unprepared. His designs evolved rapidly, incorporating lessons learned from the mission aboard the mothership. When Ryan visited to test a prototype, Ethan grinned proudly. "This one's faster, quieter, and harder to detect," he explained. "If we ever have to do something like that again, we'll be ready." Sarah Dawson chose to stay in the military, rising quickly through the ranks thanks to her skills and bravery during the invasion. She trained new recruits, emphasizing discipline, teamwork, and adaptability. Her drills were intense, but she pushed her students to excel because she knew firsthand how much was at stake. "Out there, hesitation gets you killed," she told them during one session. "So don't hesitate. Trust your instincts, trust your team, and trust yourselves." As months passed, life began to return to some semblance of normalcy. Markets reopened, schools resumed classes, and communities celebrated small victories. People laughed again, danced again, and dreamed again. The fear hadn't disappeared entirely. How could it, after what they'd been through? But it no longer controlled them. Instead, it fueled their resolve to protect what they had rebuilt. One evening, Ryan stood on a hill overlooking Washington, D.C., watching as lights twinkled in the distance. The city was still scarred, but it was alive, buzzing with activity. Beside him, Sarah and Ethan joined him, each lost in their own thoughts. "Do you think they'll come back?" Ethan asked finally, breaking the silence. Ryan shrugged. "Maybe, maybe not. Either way, we'll be ready." Sarah nodded in agreement. "And if they do, we'll send them running." For a moment, none of them spoke, content to simply stand there and reflect. They had faced the deadliest hunters in the universe and emerged victorious. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but they had proven something important. Humanity wasn't defined by its weaknesses. It was defined by its ability to rise above them, to unite in the face of adversity, and to fight for a better future. Far above, the remnants of the Krylos fleet drifted deeper into space, carrying tales of their defeat. Somewhere among the stars, their queen, if she still lived, would hear of Earth's defiance. Perhaps she would plot revenge. Perhaps she would warn others to stay away. Whatever happened next, humanity was prepared. They had earned their place among the stars, not as victims but as survivors. And when the time came to face the unknown once more, they would meet it with courage, ingenuity, and unwavering resolve. Months turned into a year since the Krylos invasion had been repelled. The world was still healing, but the scars of war were slowly being replaced by signs of renewal. In Chicago, Jake Miller walked through what had once been a devastated neighborhood, now bustling with activity. Construction crews worked tirelessly to rebuild homes and businesses, while children played in newly cleared parks. The Wraith stood nearby, its battered frame a reminder of the battles fought, but also of the resilience that had carried them through. Jake stopped to talk to a group of volunteers painting a mural on the side of a building. It depicted Earth, surrounded by stars with figures of humans standing tall against shadowy shapes meant to represent the Krylos. "It's beautiful," Jake said, smiling at the artist leading the project. The young woman nodded, brushing paint off her hands. "We wanted something to remind everyone how strong we are," she replied. Her words echoed what Jake had felt for months, that humanity's spirit was its greatest weapon. In Los Angeles, Mia Carter sat in her upgraded command center, now part of a global network dedicated to monitoring space. Rows of monitors displayed, live feeds from satellites scanning deep space along with data streams tracking potential threats. She sipped coffee as she reviewed reports, her eyes sharp despite the late hour. A blinking alert caught her attention, an anomaly near the edge of the solar system. She leaned closer, analyzing the readings. It wasn't conclusive yet, but it bore similarities to the energy signatures emitted by the Krylos ships. Mia contacted Ryan Hayes immediately. He answered on the first ring, his voice steady, even though it was the middle of the night. "What is it?" he asked. Mia explained the situation, sending him the data for review. "It might be nothing," she admitted. "But if it's them," Ryan didn't need her to finish the sentence. "I'll assemble the team," he said. Better safe than sorry. Within hours, Ryan, Sarah Dawson, and Ethan Cole were en route to a top-secret facility where advanced stealth fighters awaited them. The prototypes Ethan had developed were sleeker and more powerful than ever before, equipped with enhanced cloaking systems and weapons designed to counter alien technology. As they prepared for launch, Laura Bennett joined them, carrying updated research on the Krylos. "If this is them, we'll need every advantage we can get," she said, handing over a tablet loaded with information. The mission took them far beyond Earth's orbit, toward the source of the anomaly. The journey was tense but quiet, each member focused on their role. Ryan piloted his fighter with precision, guiding the formation through the vast emptiness of space. Sarah monitored their surroundings, her sharp eyes scanning for any sign of danger. Ethan kept an eye on the ship's systems, ensuring everything functioned perfectly. Behind them, Earth grew smaller and smaller, a pale blue dot suspended in darkness. When they reached the coordinates, the anomaly revealed itself. A lone Krylos scout ship drifting lifelessly in the void. Its surface was scorched and cracked, evidence of a violent encounter. Ryan signaled for the team to approach cautiously. "This doesn't feel right," Sarah muttered, her finger hovering over the trigger of her weapon. They boarded the ship, moving through corridors eerily similar to those of the mothership they had destroyed. Inside, they found remnants of the hive mind connection, severed and dead. The ship's logs, partially intact, told a chilling story. The Krylos Queen had survived the destruction of the mothership but had been gravely wounded. She had ordered her forces to retreat, regroup, and prepare for revenge. This scout ship had been sent ahead to assess Earth's defenses, but something else had intercepted it. Fragments of alien tech embedded in the wall suggested another species, one unfamiliar to humanity, had attacked the Krylos. Ethan examined the foreign tech closely, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Whoever did this isn't friendly," he said finally. "They're dangerous, maybe even worse than the Krylos." Laura agreed, pointing out that the energy signatures matched patterns associated with ancient legends of a predatory race known as the Vorthak. Little was known about them except that they were nomadic hunters, preying on weaker civilizations. Back on Earth, news of the discovery spread quickly among world leaders. Emergency meetings were held to discuss the implications. If the Krylos returned and brought the Vorthak with them, humanity would face an unprecedented threat. Plans were accelerated to fortify Earth's defenses, including orbital platforms armed with EMP cannons and planetary shields powered by bioelectric energy harvested from the remnants of the Krylos core. Jake and his crew tested new ground vehicles, designed to withstand both alien weaponry and harsh environments. These machines, nicknamed Sentinels, were faster and more durable than anything they'd used before. During a training exercise, Jake pushed one of the Sentinels to its limits, racing across rugged terrain while simulating combat scenarios. When he returned to base covered in dust but grinning, his teammates cheered. "These things are monsters," he said, patting the vehicle affectionately. "They'll give us a fighting chance." Mia continued her work, refining the satellite network to detect not just Krylos ships but any unknown vessels entering the solar system. She collaborated with international teams to develop AI algorithms capable of predicting enemy movements based on past behavior. Late nights became routine, but she didn't mind. Every improvement brought humanity closer to safety. Sarah trained new recruits at a state-of-the-art facility built specifically for preparing soldiers to face extraterrestrial threats. Her methods were unorthodox but effective, focusing on adaptability and teamwork. One day, she led a group through a simulated ambush involving holographic projections of Krylos warriors and Vorthak drones. The recruits stumbled at first, but quickly learned to rely on each other. By the end of the exercise, they moved like a single unit, earning Sarah's approval. Ethan's lab buzzed with activity as he worked on integrating alien tech into human systems. His breakthrough came when he successfully created a hybrid power source combining bioelectric energy with conventional fuel cells. The result was a compact, efficient generator capable of powering entire cities or fleets of ships. When he demonstrated it to Ryan and Laura, their jaws dropped. "This changes everything," Ryan said, shaking his head in disbelief. "We might actually stand a chance." As preparations intensified, so did efforts to unify humanity further. Cultural exchanges, educational programs, and shared scientific initiatives strengthened bonds between nations. People began to see themselves not as citizens of individual countries, but as members of a single species united by a common goal: survival. Memorials honoring those lost during the invasion served as reminders of why unity mattered. One evening, Ryan stood on the same hill outside Washington, D.C., watching the city lights flicker below. Beside him, Sarah and Ethan joined him, as they often did after long days of planning and testing. "Do you think we're ready?" Ethan asked, breaking the silence. Ryan glanced at him, then at Sarah, before answering. "As ready as we'll ever be," he said. "We've done all we can. Now it's up to us to hold the line." Sarah nodded, her expression resolute. "Whatever comes next, we'll face it together." For a moment, none of them spoke, content to simply stand there and reflect. The road ahead was uncertain, filled with challenges no one could predict. But they had proven time and again that humanity's greatest strength lay not in its weapons or technology, but in its ability to rise above fear and despair. They had faced the deadliest hunters in the universe and emerged victorious, not because they were stronger or smarter, but because they refused to give up. Far above, the stars twinkled coldly, hiding countless mysteries and dangers. Somewhere out there, the Krylus Queen plotted her vengeance, perhaps allying herself with the mysterious Vorthok. Humanity couldn't know when or where the next threat would come, but one thing was certain: they would meet it head-on, armed, with courage, ingenuity, and an unshakable belief in their own resilience. And when the time came, they would fight, not just for themselves, but for the future of all humankind.